So admittedly, I am not that great at Doffy. It's been like that since the beginning of the release of the One Piece card game. And nowadays, I do like Doffy. I like how blue plays. There's a few different things and advantages like, you know, bottom decking or returning Marcos back to hand when you go against red. Or just the cool fact that you can play technically one cost, or things for one cost that are bigger bodies like 4/6s. You know, there's really cool things for Doffy. And recently in OPO3, obviously in OPO4 you get like the 10 drop Kaido, but OPO3 we have a few cool event cards, you know. But for me, again, it really just comes down to learning the deck and just getting good at it. If I had to suggest anything when it comes down to Doffy, it's just go out there and play it. There's a few different lines of play that you kind of have to understand, as well as just kind of get used to when it comes down to Doffy. So taking a look at the deck list that I've been using, it's pretty standard from OPO2, but with a couple new tricks up its sleeve, right? But really not really. And I think Doffy still sticks to its own archetype, just simply because of the 7 Warlords of the Sea. And if you're looking for more of the blue support that came out of OPO3, you're probably looking towards Croc instead of Doffy, right? Doffy ends up needing a bunch of the stuff like Gecko Moria or Boa Hancock or the Don Flamingo 3-drop, etc., right? Those are the things you kind of need in order to function for this leader effect. And in case you forgot, you just pay 1 when you swing after you've placed 2 Dawn underneath. And then if there is a 7 Worlds of the Sea character card, 4 or less on top, and after you reveal it, you can play it rested. So stuff like the Gecko Moria you can play for 1, or you can play the Boa Hancock and kind of protect it and then use it as a block or swing when you have 5 or less to draw. You can play the Bartholomew in order to play the Pacifistas, which is why you play 4 of these guys. It's an interesting ratio that I've been trying. You can probably play 4 of these guys instead, but Sentomaru, in my personal opinion, you really either get to resolve it once or twice, sometimes more, right? Or it just stays there. So if you end up seeing it through the 1-drop Rona or the 3-drop Don Flamingo, and then you actually end up wanting to draw it, then that's cool. The issue with having Sentomaru out, it just sort of relies on surviving. So playing it for 3 and then hoping it doesn't die against something like red or even green, something like that, it is kind of a hassle to try to keep it alive, which is why I reduced it to 1. You see some other lists do that too. Just because if you see it, you see it. If you don't, you don't. You just kind of rely on the Bartholomew in order to play the Pacifistas. Basically you just have to have it out once. So if you have 6 Dawn, you can play it for 3, place 1 underneath, and then pay 2, and then just use that to get a 4K and as well as a 6K. And if it lives for the next turn, then yeah, cool. If not, then that is just how things go. One of the newer additions, is going to be the 3000 Swords. And this is really just for the Marcos, right? This is really just for like the 5/7 skill lists against Whitebeard. These are for anything that is honestly kind of a trouble, right? Some of the Borsalinos you can use it against as well. There's a lot of things you can kind of use this against. The trigger effect is less good because it's 3 or less. I wish it was 4 or less. I think they could have got away with that. But probably be a higher cost if that was the case. But bottom decking something is super clutch. Because you are playing Perona, because you are playing Don Flamingo, plus you are Don Flamingo in general, and Desespada helps with that too, you can kind of just move it out the way throughout the game in order, if you know that you're not going to be using it. So like red and black is going to be great, sometimes against green, but the mirror, what is it? Not black, some other matchups like yellow. So yeah, sometimes you can pay 4 so that way they don't draw off of the Pero, the 3-drop. That's a thought, but it is what it is. I mean, you could play against the Cracker or some other threat that's a 4 cost, and it's not too bad. So I guess it does have a good amount of use against any matchup. So keep that in mind and just, you know, play it as you go. The other stuff doesn't really change. Again, you play Perona on 1 if you're going first, 3 if you're going well, prone on 1 and then use the 3 if you see something good like Gecko Moria or something else that you can play off of the leader effect, or you can play for 3 on turn 2 going first, and then just sort of set up the rest of your turns from there. Actually, I did a few things. So I added back Virgos because Virgos ended up being really good on curve going first, and just sometimes even good going second, right? Like having 6 Dawn, there are an awkward number of things you can do. You can swing 7, but you have 3 left, which you could end up using the 3-drop Don Flamingo first. But if you don't have that, then it's sort of awkward. You can play a Burrow Hancock going second as well, so there's always a thought for that. But in general, like having a 5/7 out mid to late game is really good. You might be asking what is going on with this Trafalgar Law. So on curve going second is actually not bad, but it is kind of for the Whitebeard matchup, and I've used it a few different times. It catches people off guard for sure, and it's really just a flex spot, right? It is something that, again, you pay 6. It's a 7K. It doesn't have counter, so you kind of want it out of your hand anyway. And if your opponent has 6 or more cards in their hand, they get to add a life from their hand, or from their life area to their hand. And it's interesting because, again, it is against Whitebeard, but things like Katakuri and Big Mom, this really kind of ends up disrupting whatever they're trying to do. So obviously on the sim it tells you, but obviously in person you can end up seeing, like, you know, what are they doing? If they're placing on top and they really want it on top after taking a peek of it, or Big Mom places something on top and they want it there, then just play this. You know, I don't believe any of their trigger effects ends up triggering. So I mean, it hasn't happened so far, so I would imagine not. And that is because that trigger states only if you take damage it ends up triggering. So let everyone know if they have any questions on that. But overall, again, pretty standard deck for Doffy, reducing the amount of Mihawks just because I think the format's a little too slow for Mihawks, and I think 2 is fine. I think 2 is fine. It is still necessary in a few different matchups, even if you go against something like green. I mean, bottom decking a 7 cost is still pretty powerful for their kid, but there's a lot of different things that you can bottom deck, and just having a 9k swing, which is not that great, is not too bad. All right, so first up is gonna be Film Kid. Yeah, so this is gonna be, you know, a pretty normal game, I would say. Some people are still trying out the kid leader and a lot of different things, but mostly it's gonna be kid, or film, I should say. I chose to go first, and I opened up Perona, so I was like, why not? None of these actually looked that great, to be honest. So I think I messed up a little bit here, because I think the better play is not to draw the boa, is just to just play out the boa. But if you do mess up like that, or if you want a different sort of thing there, instead of the Draco Mihawk, which I think is fine, because you can just play the Gecko Mario, get it back, and then play the Law instead. You can always just counter out of this as well, which I go ahead and do. You know, Kid is a little restricted when it comes down to its Dawn, because most of the time it's going to be on the 3s, it's going to be on the 5/7s, and if you're going second, you're restricted to that Nami effect there, which is fine. I actually ended up swinging with the Draco, or the Mihawk, and that was perfectly fine. I think a little 7, get it down to 2. He's gonna go ahead and swing 5 or 5. I just let it die because he has this leader swing, and I'd rather him swing at my face, so that way I can just draw a card. So most likely next turn I'll probably play the Gecko into a Law, and then swing into its Nami, and then just kind of go from there. Really is just building a board. It's kind of important here, I think, but since I don't have a board, that's where the concerns kind of come. So he finally swings here, 5 for 5, and I said, yeah, that's fine. Draw into the 6-drop. law, the blue one. That one is the one you take a life, or if they take a life when they have 6 or more cards in hand. Surprisingly, he's only playing the 3 cost, doesn't have the 4, which is fine. I'd imagine, oh, I was gonna say he's gonna keep one up, but these Bonnies are free to swing. I was deciding if I want to play the law, which I end up playing. It's a 7k that gives me another swing, and I do have the double law, which a lot of the film decks don't play a Neko, so it's not like a super quick and easy way to tap these guys down, other than maybe Izu, which is fine. You know, it's fine. I'm gonna use a trigger effect here. That 3,000 swords might come in handy sometime or another. Likely for the bigger 5/7s if he plays one. He's gonna play the 7 drop to play the 4/6, which is perfectly fine as a target too. I'm gonna swing 9 here to bring him down to 0, or at least to get cards out of his hand. I think that was the biggest thing here. Like, he has a lot of cards in his hand. I need to start picking at that. I'm just deciding what I want to do here. I get to play the Gecko from earlier before. I think I'm still in the top 5. I think that was the last part of the top 5, so that's good. I'll leave 4 open to bottom deck the 4/6, and then I do that. So that's 2. I got 2 life, 2 bodies with a 6k and a 7k, which is not extremely good, because he does have the 7k, 5k, and 5k, and his leader they can swing twice, which is mad annoying. But he's only got 1 life, so he has to be kind of careful here. It'd be kind of annoying for him to play another 7 drop, which he might. I mean, 10 dot, yep, okay. I was gonna say 10 dot is a lot to work with, and a lot of the film deck stuff is just, you know, itself. I over counter here because I wanted to play the boa. I don't know if I end up playing it, but drawing into to another Desert Spada is not amazing. I swing 9 here for the 7 cost blockers. It's gonna take a minute to get through these, so you know that is part of the game, unfortunately. I'm just deciding on what I want to use for the remainder of my dawn. Just doing the math here. I didn't know what was on top, so I just used the extra dawn just to do that. I have 2 Desert Spadas, so that way I can actually decide what I'm going to be drawing next after this Mihawk. He just plays another 7 drop Luffy, which is again very annoying. I can counter out with like a boa. I don't think that's too big of a deal, to be honest. I'm just gonna use this. I think this is good because to be honest, I think it was fine not to. So I'm definitely gonna use the Mihawk here, right? So the Mihawk here, and then swing into his bodies. Keep 1 up for Desert Spada. He's gonna block here with the Luffy as well. And I think, like I said, it was probably fine to do it the other way. I think I messed that up. So you gotta be careful with your the top cards, basically. That is the whole point of the deck, honestly. You just gotta remember what you're placing on top at the end of the day. So we're getting out of here with Gecko Moria. It's kind of getting scary now, because you know, if I go down to 1, Kid is gonna just kill me. I don't know how else to say it. But because I have all of these bodies on board, you know, it's not too scary. What's really scary is if he taps me down and then he just swings with leader twice. You know, the cheapest way to do that is Izu, and then he has 2 7 swings plus his Luffy. So he could end it, honestly. If he had it Izu, he could just end it. But I think he's just deciding what he wants to do. But like I said, I ended up getting the Kuma, and I think I'm drawing the bear afterwards to actually have a target to play from hand. So I think that's what the idea is here. But I don't think there's going to be another turn if he ends up doing this. So he is deciding to do that. So It is a 8. I have to get the 9. I don't have 9 in hand, so I can block. It doesn't really matter because now I think the math is just what the math is. I just have to block with the Luffy. So do that. Placing on top, I fix the top, and then I go to 9, and then he ends up conceding, and that just makes sense, right? He knows that I have a blocker, and if he had an Izu or something like to tap it down, then the law wouldn't be a factor. So I got a little lucky there, right? Either he doesn't play it, or if he doesn't actually, you know, he didn't see it basically. So next up is Law, which ironically both of these decks are mostly OPO2, OPO1, and you know, I think I came out with my my deck profile slash like fun deck slash boring deck for Law video. If you haven't checked that out, definitely check that out. But if anything, yeah, I think this matchup is a little interesting. I think it really comes down to is just like overwhelming the Law player to make sure that they can't deal with certain things. And I did open not too great, but I mulliganed and got what I got. Played out the Law, he played out Nami and Chopper. I forget what he got from that, but I ended up playing Sentamaru, thinking that I'm just gonna play one of the Pacifistas off of it the next turn. But I think what I ended up doing, just swinging 6 here. He took it, and I just bottom decked the Nico Robin. I think in retrospect, because I was trying to protect my Law, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna use a Law sometime or another. And with all these smaller swings, especially this one here, where I'm gonna have to get rid of a 2k, that 3000 source probably was a little bit better for the 5-drop Law. But my thinking was that I'm just gonna use my Mihawk instead. That was part of the plan as it happened. But use the 3-cost Doflamingo just to figure out what I want to draw next and what I want to play next. I do have a Pacifista in hand, so I think what I can do is just end up drawing the 3-drop to do this again later on, but draw the 2k counter and then play out the Bartholomew from the leader effect. So that way I can play off the Pacifista. And that's kind of where you want to be when it comes down to Doflamingo, just knowing what you want to play and when to play it. He did Jet Pistol my Sentamaru, which is kind of annoying, but that is fine, I guess. I know that my next card is something that can play off my leader, so I think I can go 8 into one of these 6Ks here, play out the Bartholomew, whatever you want to say it, and then I can play Gekimoria if I wanted to here into the Law blocker again, which is exactly what I do. So just obviously he has the Luffy to ignore these guys, which is fine, just depending on what he swings with. Because the way I see it is that I'm still gonna have a Pacifist on board, no matter what, basically. So he's gonna swing into the Bartholomew, which I don't think is the case, or the play. I think you should have just swung into face or Pacifista. I think those are better targets to swing at. But that's okay. Yeah, I get 2 Pacifistas on board now. If he swings with his Laws, I have a pretty good chance to get rid of them. I have Mihawk to decide what I want to swing into, and I think that's what I'm gonna decide after I defend these guys. So I think swinging 6s into the Luffy with a low hand size is probably the best bet, because he has to be forced to get rid of his already low hand or defend against with his blockers, which this is basically what's happening. He's got to go ahead and just get rid of his hand, and then I'm just gonna keep swinging. I think he blocks with the Chopper here is probably the best bet. The result's kind of the same, honestly, if I put Dawn underneath the 6Ks here. Didn't bother to swing with the leader, just simply because you know, he has 2 6K blockers. You can just block with one of them. It's not that big of a deal. So he's gonna go pretty hard with this Brook. He's gonna go 7 into my Gecko, which I'm cool with. I'm cool with one of these guys leaving. Gonna block with the Doflamingo. Now he's gonna be forced to block with these Laws, which means either I can swing into him, or he's just not gonna be able to use those to defend. So depending on what he uses with the last 3 Dawn, I think I take this one. Yeah, I did take this one, and then I counter out on the next one. So now I just got to decide how I want to use my bodies on board. Because I don't think I can take game with 1 up, which means he has a guard point or a radical beam, which is going to make it pretty difficult for me to push through game. So I think clearing board and then using or doing it the next turn with the amount of blockers that I have in hand is probably going to be the better bet. 9 Dawn is a lot, so I think I misplayed here, because if he does have a guard point or radical beam, it's probably best just to swing 6s and then just play out the rest of your blockers, which I only had 2 spots anyway, and I didn't want to replace one of these guys, so it's probably just best just to use the Dawn instead, because I can use 1 for this guy, or 3 for this guy, and 1 for this guy. That's 4, and then I have 3 left, which means I swing 9 into one of the laws, which I guess if he had a radical beam, it didn't really make too much of a difference anyway. So 2 blockers. He could jet pistol 1 and then swing twice. He would just have to be top. You just have the top deck, which he drew into a Basil, which means he really just didn't have much else. So he basically conceded and disconnected immediately in true OP TCG Sim fashion. Love it. All right, next up is going to be black, yellow, Lidlin. I think this is the last one, but I chose to go first. If I went second, it might be just as good, because I think they want to go second. I don't remember this one, but sometimes if they lean black, then they have a lot of evens to play. But if you're leaning yellow, then you want to go first. So it just depends on what you're playing and what you're building with. I decided to keep the hand because I opened a Perona. And the top 5 is not amazing, to be honest. I think I'm going to go with the same sort of idea as last time, as in playing the Centauro and then going to Virgo for the next 2 turns on curve. But it just depends on, you know, what I draw in, or not so much to draw into, but what he plays and how I respond to that. And I guess I'm going to be drawing into another card that I don't know from my life. I do know for the rest of them, because I'm going to be drawing to another 2k and going from there. So I played the Centauro. The only efficient way for him to get rid of it, including my Virgo, is Thunderbolt. So may as well just play it out and then just use Centauro's effect and swing 7s. Why not? So I got the Mihawk here. Gonna be good against his black cards, not so much his yellow cards. It's only a couple of cards that are good, like the 7-drop Big Mom. But honestly, he's talking about dropping Mom after it comes down. It kind of did its thing, right? So like if you Mihawk it, it's like whatever. But I play Virgo after this, and now I have a 7k. I got a 6k coming out, depending on what he does to go against it. I counter out the Boa, so now I do have a target for Gecko Moria, but he plays a Sakazuki, which I do have a Mihawk for it. So at the very least, I have that going for me. I swing 8 here and then play the Gecko Moria. So that's why I counter out of the Boa. I think that's the last of it, or just about the last of the top 5 that I saw using the Perona, if I did the math correctly. So he did take that one. Oh, you know what? It was not. It was not. I think I just got lucky on that Gecko. Now that I look at it, because my deck got shuffled from the Centauro. So yeah, got lucky on that one. Sometimes it just ends up that way too. Swung 7 to my Gecko. 6 at my leader. I'm just keeping my life relatively healthy as I build a board out, just simply because if he does play the bigger moms, it's gonna be a better thing to do. Instead of just keeping a lower life total, I just end up losing a lot harder. Cracker coming down is annoying. There's a thing there to say, like, you know, I should have did Centauro, and then maybe Boa to block against the Cracker. I mean, that's probably not too bad, and then swing 7 just to make sure he takes a life. But I think establishing a Mihawk with a higher life total, along with getting rid of his Sakazuki, is just as good to me, because then it's a less of a, like, I'm just going to try to swing into his Centauro or his Sakazuki, and then his Fukuru is just going to block it, and it's just not going to be a fun time. So Playing the Mihawk instead on curve is a little bit better. I did take the 2. My hand is pretty healthy, unless he goes like super hard on this other cracker, which if he does, then I'm just gonna try to go for game or try to block her up next turn. You know, but I have a pretty, like I said, I have a pretty healthy hand. I have like what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8K in hand. So, you know, getting rid of those cards isn't too big of a deal. I have a bow in hand to play for block. Get another one with Gecko Moria if I need to. But I think I'm just going to use my Dawn to defend. And I'm also just going to get rid of these guys. Because honestly, not that big of a deal. Because I want to keep these guys on board. He's tapped out. He has to block or try to get rid of some cards out of hand. He's definitely going to block here, which is fine. I think I'm deciding how I want to approach this. I think 7s into these guys is going to be the way. I just don't know how to do it. 7 there, that's going to go ahead and get rid of that one. The philosophy, if he didn't block the first one, that means he's probably not going to block the next one. So there you go. I'm just setting it up where I can hit 7s again along with the leader effect to see if I find something, which I don't believe I don't think I used my like scry abilities. So I decided not to play this because I wanted 1 open for the law, and then I wanted to use Doflamingo for the next turn, if I do get a next turn, of course, and then use the leader effect afterwards. Which is a little scary because, you know, he still has 1 life. He did pop my Pacifista with the impact wave, which is stupid, but that's cool. Sometimes you just run into a trigger. There you go. So played out a law here. He's gonna swing. I said okay. I'm just gonna counter out of that. Yeah, it was either gonna be this or, excuse me, a not Borsalino, but the 10-drop Big Mom from there. And he's really not seeing any of the Big Mom stuff. Yeah, that's what it seems like. I don't think I needed to play the Doflamingo here. I think it was fine not to do that just yet. But I did find a 3,000 swords to deal with the Borsalino if I ever get to that point. So there's that. I can play the Gecko Moria. I have 6 here, so I can swing 5 with Setsamaru and as well as along with Mihawk. But I think what I'm trying to decide is how to do it first. I think I'm just going to swing first. He's going to block with the Borsalino, which is just a kind of a free blocking damage, and now is just sort of bullying the Borsalino afterwards. Getting rid of the other 2 blockers and now just putting him in a position where, with 2 blockers on my end and 2 life, it is pretty much a wrap from here. Shout out to the guy named Vegeta playing against me, and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to defend against that. So he immediately disconnected again in OPO's OP sim TCG sim whatever fashion. If anything, hopefully that gave you a little insight of how I play Doffy in general. I think I'm getting better. You guys are on the journey with me to get better at Doffy along the way. But either way, subscribe if you're new. Check out my Twitch in the description below if you want to see this live and in person, kind of, not really, through the Twitch chat. And I'll see you in the next one.